This is Notre Dame running back Audric Estime.
I'm sure a lot of people don't want to give him a chance. 4.71 40 is never very fun. That's 17th percentile at the position, but he at least cleaned it up at the pro day. 4.61. Don't really care about that. Really, it's just his production in college. He's only 20 years old. And some of the other athletic traits you can kind of see both at the combine, like his vertical jump, 81st percentile, broad jump, 79th percentile. You see him like hurdle over defenders. And yeah, the long speed, like 30, 40, 50 yards downfield, forgettable. But I think in short windows, a little bit of burst, I think that he has NFL starter capabilities there.
So I think this is an awesome conversation to have because it kind of picks out different topics that happen during draft season and applies them all to a singular running back. Because as you said, his athletic testing at 5'11", 221 pounds, not the best 40 time. And let's just even stick with the combine, okay? At 4.71. But this is a prime example of why I always talk about athletic profiles and not just a 40-yard dash. Composite scores. He still had a 53rd percentile 10-yard split at 1.58, then an 86th percentile vert, and an 87th percent broad jump. So yes, the 40 is quite bad. I would still call Audric Estime at 221 pounds, a very, very good athlete. And you combine that 40 time that people are going to continue to put on his player card and everything with how he was also the most productive one of running backs in this class, over 1,300 yards, 210 carries, 18 touchdowns this season. So with all of that said, Hayden, where do you think Audric Estime wins on an NFL field? Because just watching him aesthetically, he's a boulder with legs.
86th percentile age and team adjusted production. So he is like one of the most productive backs in the class. When I watch him, I think that he actually runs with power. There's a lot of like 220 pound backs that I don't necessarily think he does that. He'll finish off runs. He was highly efficient on them. Only 37% of his runs came off tackles. So he's like very traditional, kind of a throwback type of body. David Montgomery, Damian Harris, Chris Carson. Those are kind of my comps for.
Hate the first two, like the last one. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, sure. But right up the middle, I think that he just can finish off runs. And I think that he has a little bit of wiggle, nothing too crazy here, but just enough to make one or two guys miss. You kind of see this in some of his advanced stats. 28% missed tackle rate. That's really good. 4.3 yards after contact. That's classic for this type. So yeah, the long speed, like you said, the 10-yard split was solid. Everything beyond that, you're not going to be super impressed with. But for the most part, most things with the running back, especially in this early down power role, it's all about, can you get to the first and second level of the defense? And I think that he does that at a fine enough level.
So I might view him slightly different than you. And I'll start with the negatives, okay? Even against Tennessee State this season, I thought he looked slow behind the line of scrimmage. There were a number of occasions that they forced him to move laterally behind the line of scrimmage. And it took a long time for him to get going. And he lacked balance in those instances. Again, before he was able to get his second and third step, then he was just going to go down to the ground. But once you get him going, and this goes for every single opponent that they played this year, he does have those shortcuts and guys just, again, bounce off of him. He's a boulder with legs. And I think he has, to be honest, enough straight line speed that once he gets beyond the linebackers, if they are trying to pursue him from behind, his speed is absolutely fine. Like, the long speed is not something I honestly had massive questions about because there aren't going to be a ton of those plays that really matter. But before the linebackers is actually where I saw concern about his speed, about his burst, and especially when he was forced to almost change his path at the line of scrimmage or just behind it, then you're going to get like a negative play off of that.
Yeah, kind of cruise shippy where you're not going to expect him to completely change his directions in an instance there. He weirdly had like this little jump that he would just hurdle over defenders at the second level, which I thought was pretty interesting. You obviously saw that in the combine testing. Yeah, there was like some GPS numbers out there on Audric Estime where his like actual speed on film is like decent definitely compared to the metrics. And I thought that he played faster than what the combine stuff said.
Athletic.
He's not super dynamic as an athlete, but there's enough explosiveness. And at the end of the day, if you're 221 pounds, that still matters. Like, we shouldn't compare him to 200-pound guys that are going to be catching balls in the flat. So yeah, going back to it, the efficiency, 54% success rate 0.24 points earned per carry. That's the second best in the class. And that's basically how much credit he deserves on the expected points added that Notre Dame's picking up. And this is just classic Notre Dame stuff. So, yeah, I don't expect some dynamic type of player here, but I think in a class where I'm like trying to figure out who has a trait I can just like fall back onto, I think Audric Estime has this like early down, grinder out, goal line type of back out there. And I think that his explosiveness is a little bit undersold just because of how bad that 40 time was.
I know it might sound contradictory, but again, he was, via statistics as well, one of the most explosive running backs in this class. 38 carries of 10 plus yards. That's fifth most in the class.
Yeah.
Third most 15 plus yard carries at 22. Fifth best in the class with his yards after contact per attempt at 4.27 yards. He had 25 targets in 2022, 18 in 2023. I didn't see any negatives really pop out to me as a check down receiver.
Yeah.
As a pass protector, it was hilarious at times to see a man this big cut block so often. But against like Ohio State, and you can throw in a few different examples, Duke, they threw a whole bunch of different blitz packages and pressure packages at him. I thought he did a really good job of identifying those and attacking the filling linebackers on top of that. It is, again, that lateral wiggle and changing lanes that concerns me. And there's even a difference of that, again, behind the line of scrimmage when your initial path is blocked, and then even once getting to the linebackers. But once he goes beyond the linebackers and they are forced to turn and run after him, I actually had fewer questions on top of it. So I know this is all like a weird thing when you just talk about his 4.71 and people wrote him off as soon as he ran that. I would suggest looking beyond that because this is a really fun and interesting player to watch. And there aren't that many backs, I think, like him in the league now. I think on the bottom end of the comparison list, you get Mikel Ashore, middle, A.J. Dillon, and then top, Chris Carson, Gus Edwards.
Yeah, that's interesting. We both had Chris Carson as the upside comp there. Yeah, caught 26, all 26 career targets. So hands don't necessarily seem to be an issue. We're not expecting him to run option routes and wheel routes out there. But another player like Brian Robinson, kind of this downhill guy, he's effective enough as a pass catcher as well. So yeah, this is not the sexiest class, but I think that Audric Estime, to me, will be somebody that can handle 150 to 250 type of touches if he goes to the right landing spot.
That's a lot. I think maybe early on, and I know a lot of people will be watching this video after he's already been selected, but there's a lot of teams out there that have a smaller back on the roster, but not a bigger back. Like, could you see him being the bigger back for like the Buffalo Bills in comparison to James Cook?
Yeah. Why can't he be Latavius Murray? Yeah, I don't see that. Yeah.
Okay. That does it. Go and watch the other prospect videos that we have on the channel, full of wide receivers, tight end, quarterbacks as well, plus running backs. If you watch this one, you'll like another, and we'll see you on it.